One of the most interesting places to take pictures of characters that no longer exist was at the Animation Courtyard in Playhouse Disney. But it's changed quite a bit. I really liked parts of it as a photographer, and other parts not so much. One of the places I really enjoyed working during my time at Disney MGM Studios, now Disney Hollywood Studios, was at the Animation Courtyard and Playhouse Disney. It had some unique characters you couldn't meet anyplace else, had some unique setups that were only there, and most of it doesn't exist anymore. The Playhouse Disney characters were the ones that were outside, and there were a couple different setups for them. Over by one of the walls that leads down past One Man's Dream, over into Pixar Place, and then what is now the whole Pixar area, there were a couple trailers that were there that a couple of the characters would come out and meet at. In particular, Jojo and Goliath from JoJo's Circus was over there. The Little Einsteins used another one at one point, and they would kind of switch out the characters a bit. Jojo and Goliath were really kind of unique because they were Playhouse Disney characters that if you didn't watch Playhouse Disney, you had no idea who they were. Jojo could be kind of a little bit of a creepy clown character. I love Jojo. He was a lot of fun to work with. But Goliath had all the little kids loving on him. He had a little bit of the Pooh quality to him. Kids just loved him. Those trailers were very unique, though, in that they had a canopy that provided a little shade for the character. They had an umbrella sometimes for the photographer and attendant, but there really was very little space for queue, little space for meet and greets. So if you were working it as a photographer, you were very pressed for space and trying not to run into people and make sure you could get good pictures, but you had to stand relatively close so you weren't getting knocked over. The trailers themselves were small as well. They were an interesting little feature in that you could go through the door to the trailer, and there was a little room in there for the trailer that some of the characters used as a break room. They were air conditioned. They might have a couple seats, but they were not very big. If you really wanted to go to the main character break room, you actually continued through the trailer out the other side. There was another door there, so you'd had doors on both sides, but outside you only saw one. And that other door would then lead backstage to where their actual full break room and changing rooms and all of that was. There wasn't very much in the trailers. I got invited in a couple times by the characters to break with them. We didn't normally go into the break room unless we were invited in by the characters, just as a standard rule. But there were a couple times I went in and it was just kind of like, wow, this is it? There's nothing in here. Why are you breaking in here? Go to the... But sometimes they like to just immediately sit and relax after the set, and they were very good for that. The trailers were removed years ago. Yeah, they're not even there anymore, which is too bad. It was kind of a unique feel. It fit into the studio's feel, which they've kind of killed in the park. The other area that they have really redone that was right across the way from it, the whole Animation Courtyard area. This is where you had the magic of animation. You could go in and learn about how animation was done. They had a wonderful film with Mushu and an animator's desk there with all the art supplies, but you could learn to draw in an art class. They had all sorts of activities, and there were characters both inside and outside. Outside you had more of the Playhouse Disney characters. That's where you had the live Playhouse show. It was constantly changing, and the characters outside changed too. The Little Einsteins had started off at one of the trailers, but then they very quickly moved over there, and there's I believe it's three different photo spots that are there. They're still used. They're small. They basically have a little corner wall with a roof over it and then a short queue area. The last time I was there, Pluto was actually using one of them, of all characters, along with Vampirina. But at the time, it was Little Einsteins and a couple of the others from Playhouse Disney, and they would switch out in different characters on a regular basis. It was a interesting place. Part of the struggle I had was I really didn't know who the Little Einsteins characters were. I just knew they were part of Little Einsteins, and I could do the theme song, but I didn't know any of their names. So yeah, and then of course you hear the Little Einsteins theme over and over and over and over. That would get annoying. They had the covers, they had a couple fans up in the ceiling that blew down, trying to give you a little bit of cool air, but there wasn't a whole lot. And again, it was a small area. If I've ever shown you the picture of my office at church, it is about the same size as the meet and greet areas there. It's not a lot of room, and you put the characters on one side in the corner wall, and you're trying to stand on the other side. And we were literally leaning against the railing sometimes, trying to get pictures of people and trying to get enough space where we could get everybody in. There wasn't a lot of room to move. You had to be very careful to not trip over bags that guests had set down while they met the characters, to not trip over feet that were right behind you, to have little kids come underneath the chain. That happened on a regular basis. It was an awkward place to take pictures. It was not designed with a photographer in mind with the characters. It wasn't bad if you had only the character, but throwing a photographer in there really kind of made it a little claustrophobic. It was hard to work. It was fun. The kids had a blast. It was not the best setup. It was one that I know that several times we had put in requests and suggestions to Imagineering to make adjustments, and they never happened. I love the Imagineers, but whoever the Imagineers were that designed the character sets, they really needed to come out and actually visit them with the character and a photographer and learn. Almost every time they redid a character set, the photographers were not consulted, and yeah, but that's a whole nother beef. I can think of several of those, like Donald spotted Epcot. And, anyways, it was just an awkward place to shoot. Had fun, but when you got assigned that, it was kind of a of all the places. One of the other awkward places to shoot was also right in that same area. It was actually inside the animation building. We had 3 different spots that we would shoot pictures of characters inside animation. Sorcerer Mickey was in there, we had a changing one, and then you had the Incredibles. And the Incredibles spot inside animation, frankly, stank. There was a stairway, and actually if you go through Star Wars Launch Bay now, the stairway is still there. As you come through the gift shop and go in, you can actually see a stairway that goes down, and that stairway kind of marks where the Incredibles were. They were right over to the right side going down, left side coming up of it. I can't remember what's there now. It's some prop or something. You can still walk right past where the Incredibles were. It was not a big place. It was just basically a rounded off section of the landing area that stuck out a little bit, and hey, let's put the characters there. For a long time, they didn't even have a backdrop. They did finally add a little bit of a backdrop to them to kind of set it aside, but we would have guests that would think it was a walking area, and they would literally slide in behind the Incredibles sometimes while we're taking pictures. Excuse me, character? Hello? It was not a good spot. It was very awkward. The characters would rotate in between Mr. Incredible, Mrs. Incredible, and Frozone. And we could end up with any mix of 1, 2, or 3 of them. Frozone was usually solo. And then the Incredibles, we may get 1 or 2. If we got 1, it was usually Mrs. Incredible. Mrs. Incredible, Frozone, they may trade off back and forth. When we get just 1 all day, we may get Mr. and Mrs. Incredible together. You really didn't quite know what you were going to get in that spot until you got there. You just knew it was going to be somebody from the Incredibles. No real space for queue. So you kind of line people up along the railing. Just not a good place. Fun characters to work with. Terrible location. Sorcerer Mickey, on the other hand, because he would come out with the sorcerer robe and the hat and everything, he had a great spot. They'd set off a whole section over there for him. He actually had a doorway that would come out on stage that would lead to the break room, but it allowed him to make an entry into the area, which was always fun. We could get the whole crowd riled up when we knew he was about to come out and cheering and yelling for him, and it was the only place at Walt Disney World you could catch Mickey in that outfit. I don't know that he comes out anywhere in that outfit anymore. That was a really fun spot. They had it set up where people could walk by and see him, but there was still plenty of room for us to be able to work a good-sized queue set up. It was a great place to be able to work. I loved working with Sorcerer Mickey. Amazing location, amazing character. We just had a ton of fun there. And it was fun watching people walk by who feel like they could get a close look at Mickey without getting too close and getting in the way. Those who were not waiting in line still felt like they had seen Mickey. That was probably the best location there. The other location there was one that changed and rotated depending upon what movies were out. They would change the backdrop, they would change the set. It was kind of a big half circle, and then they had the backdrop on the flat edge, And then the queue was on the side, and it had a good space for queue, plenty of room for the characters, plenty of room for photographers, and there was usually several characters out. When Bolt came out, for example, they had Bolt, they had Middens, the cat, and they had the hamster. All three of them would be out there doing meet and greets. When Ratatouille came out, they had Remy and the other rat out there. I'm forgetting his name. So they would have 2 or 3 characters out there on a regular basis, helping promote whatever the most recent movie was. It was a nice location to shoot because that half circle, it didn't just have a chain separating you, it actually had a good solid metal rail, which meant you didn't have people coming up behind you. You didn't have to worry about feet and pokes in the back. You had a nice solid railing there to protect you and square it off. It wasn't something people were going to come over or push through or anything like that. And it had a lot of space. It gave you a ton of room to move around and get side angles. Sorcerer Mickey had a very nice setup, but this was far and away, from a photographer spot, the best. You had room for people to move around. You had room for people to play. The characters had room to play. And oh, did they. Some of the characters were a little hard for them to get into because they were new. They didn't know them well. But the ones that had personality, they had a ball. I didn't get to work that spot very often. I only got it a couple of times. Sorcerer Mickey, though, was probably the place I worked the most there. And of course, that's where I had my collapse on stage in front of everybody. That was a good day. I do miss all that. That whole area has now been revamped and converted. It's now Star Wars Launch Bay, and I think it lost a lot of the character with it. You can still see some of the animation stuff out at California Adventure. They still have a lot of the same things there, but the whole idea of an animation studio is now gone. And what they replaced it with, as huge of a Star Wars fan as I am, I think it lost a lot of the character. It was a major part of what brought the studios to life. You lost a lot of different things there. It has a couple meet and greets now. Kylo Ren is there, BB-8, which, that was kind of a sad meet and greet. Cool character, not a great meet and greet. And a couple things like that, but it's lost a lot of what made that whole area special and fun. And even the Playhouse Disney meet and greet areas now are just very generic. It's just a different feel and atmosphere, and I don't think it's quite as good as it used to be. So that's my memories of the Animation Courtyard, the animation studio itself, and what that whole area was like. It's changed a bunch, but it was a fun place to work. Do you remember it? What memories do you have? I would love to hear them in the comments below. Please don't forget to share them. Don't forget to hit that like button, share it, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already either. Thank you so incredibly much to my YouTube members and my patrons for their support. They bless me in more ways than you know, and they make some incredible things possible. If you want to know more about that, please check the description below. Thank you so incredibly much for watching. God bless. One of the places I really enjoyed working at the time, Disney MGM Studios, and now Disney's Hollywood Studios. Alongside one wall, which leads to where Toy Story Mania is now, and on the way to Pixar Place, over by Walt's. Now, JoJo's... Mrs. Incredible, Frozone, Traging? Yeah, don't trage. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to know about contact information, fan pages, merchandise, and more, please be sure to check the description below. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to know when I have new ones, well, make sure you hit that subscribe button right up there. And if you want to see another one of my videos, well, I've got a great one for you right here. And a huge thank you to these wonderful people here who support me on Patreon and with YouTube memberships. They get behind the scenes information, special perks, and more. If you'd like to know more about that, well, make sure you check that button right there. Thank you so much.